I know, a lot of you are unhappy that I missed last week's breakdown, and I know what happens when we get unhappy. Luckily, I have time this week for a new video that skips the recap and gets right into the theories. We'll be talking about Zosia possibly reverting back to normal, Koumba working with the joined, and where Manuosos will be heading. Hint, it's not New Mexico. So if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a milk emoji in the comments so this video gets its sustenance. I want to start with a theory that started last episode, that Zosia's heart attack may have caused her to revert back to normal. And I think there's some compelling evidence for this. Prior to her cardiac arrest, Zosia showed glimpses of being somewhat disjointed from the hive mind. A sort of partial immunity might be an interesting way to describe it. In episode 2, she closes the curtain while taking a shower. Why would she need privacy if it's a hive mind? In that same episode, she looks back at Carol while leaving for Vegas, almost as if she regrets her decision, which shouldn't happen with the emotionless hive mind. If this cardiac arrest caused her to revert back to normal, it could explain why all the joined leave Albuquerque with Zosia. And why when Carol asks the nurse how Zosia is doing, she says she is going to be fine. The hive always refers to themselves as we or us, so the change to she implies she's been disconnected from the hive. They don't want Carol, or anyone for that matter, knowing Zosia has turned. I'd also assume that this Zosia would have no recollection of her time with Carol. Let me know what you think about this theory in the comments. The episode begins right outside Agri-Jet, the company Carol found was manufacturing this mysterious granular substance used in Duke City milk cartons. We can actually see a Duke City milk truck in episode 4. These cartons don't contain milk at all, rather a liquid called HDP, or human-derived protein. This is at the core at what drives Carol to seek out Koumba in Las Vegas, one of a few English-speaking immune individuals within a relatively short distance from her. He last told Carol that he wanted to stay at Elvis's suite at the Westgate Hotel, where Elvis himself held residency from 1969 to 1976. Like Elvis, Koumba sees himself as a king, adorning his suite with pictures of himself, a sign outside the hotel reading Le Roi, which means the king in French, and holding court over his loyal subjects who will do almost anything he desires. This is a man who, in my opinion, would never want to go back to the world the way it was, and this will come into play later on. As a quick aside, I enjoyed the reference to James Bond with Koumba's card game. This character is credited as Blowfinger, a combination of two of the most famous Bond villains, Goldfinger and Blofeld. What Carol finds at Agri-Jet are various shrink-wrapped human body parts that will go into making nutritious drinks for the joined. She believes this will be the smoking gun needed to sway the other immune to help her find a cure. Last episode, we saw how Carol produced these short videos documenting her investigation into the joined. These videos would then be translated and sent to the immune around the globe. However, she hasn't heard back from any of the others. She's kind of been ostracized ever since her vocal opposition to the joined in episode 2. Koumba even drops a bomb that some of them meet weekly for Zoom calls and keep in touch, something Carol was not invited to. Additionally, he mentions that some of the non-English speaking immune members were pissed that Carol never invited them to her gathering in Spain. But I want to mention here that while the joined can't lie, the same can't be said of Koumba. I do not trust this man at all, so take whatever he says with a grain of HDP. Carol's plan, however, is quickly dashed when she realizes Koumba already knows that the joined eat human remains. In fact, he's known about this for about a week. He found out from John Cena, of course, who he's been taking wrestling lessons from. The very fact that the joined have crafted this edited video in advance proves that they knew what Carol was going to do. This is especially concerning considering, to our knowledge, she didn't tell anyone. Remember in episode 2 that the joint said they had surveillance drones so far up in the sky you can't see them. I imagine all our immune are being watched 24/7, and they knew Carol went to the Agri-Jet facility and found those human remains. Thus, they had to do what it takes to get ahead of it. John Cena eloquently explains the plight of the joint. Since their programming forbids them from harming any living thing, including plants, it severely limits what they can and cannot eat. And with roughly 7.3 billion humans remaining who no longer can mass produce crops or eat meat, that raises a serious problem. Within the next 10 years, most of the world's population would starve to death. Now, the joined can eat fruits and plants that have fallen off the vine, or animals, including humans who die of natural causes. However, even with that, it's still not enough. The current solution is a 300-calorie liquid stored in these milk cartons. Remember that it's only been 12 days since they took over. There is still a significant amount of pre-existing food that won't expire for a while, but eventually that'll go too. Koumba so wants the joined to stay in power that he asks Carol if she can come up with any ideas on how to save them. We also hear that in their group chat they came up with this robotic farming idea, so we can assume that the other immune people share Koumba's mentality. Now, he could be lying about these chats, but the reason I think he's not is that he explicitly states one person from Paraguay isn't in them. That's Manuosos, who we'll get to in a bit. If he were lying about these Zoom chats, I assume he wouldn't have brought that up. Perhaps the biggest revelation this episode is that the joined will never be able to turn people like Carol into one of them, at least not without their consent. According to Koumba, the method to change them involves tailoring stem cells, but to obtain them they have to collect it from their bodies using an invasive procedure that involves sticking a needle into their hip. Because they can't harm anyone, they would need consent to do this procedure. No consent means they can't turn them. Immediately, I thought this was a lie made by Koumba in order to get Carol off his back and to stop her from finding a cure. He wants to maintain this lifestyle, but when Carol calls the joined, they confirm via the billboard that Koumba is correct. The joined can't lie, but I can't help but think something shady is going on here. First, Koumba tells us, rather conveniently I might add, that the joined only learned about this stem cell thing yesterday. What are the odds of that? Then we saw Koumba have this secret phone call with people he refers to as his loves the night before. If this is the joined, he's obviously conspiring with them. That still doesn't explain the billboard. Could it be a lie? First, we never see who is typing this answer. Who says it's the joined at all? It's also possible that the joined did type it, but Koumba pressed the button for it to display. What I'm trying to say is that there are all sorts of loopholes when it comes to the joined. Take, for example, in episode 2 when Koumba asks about killing animals. If he wants a steak, can the joined get one for him? While they can't kill the animal, if Koumba kills it, they would gladly prepare it for him. And think about how they can't kill, yet will get Carol an atomic bomb if she wanted. These loopholes are why I think some shenanigans are going on here with this billboard. But let's say that the joined aren't lying, that there indeed is no way to turn Carol into one of them. What we'll see is the starvation of hundreds of millions, but maybe this is what the joined want. One theory suggests that the joined, in an effort to be as efficient as possible, will purposely lower their population over time. Remember, for them, everything is about maximizing efficiency. They don't need 7 billion people. In fact, they only need one. Each person contains the combined knowledge of everyone who's ever lived, making them akin to a godlike AI. The immune might actually be the key to this virus's evolution. Imagine a hybrid of this virus that allowed one this almost infinite knowledge, but also maintained their free will. Perhaps this is the end goal, to transfer this hive mind into one of the immune while maintaining their individuality and freedom. Koumba says goodbye to Carol, stating the joined want to see a change of heart from her, to which she responds,
"Fuck 'em."
We then rewind 3 days in the past to focus on the mysterious Paraguayan Manuosos Oviedo. He's still logging these radio frequencies, with one in particular drawing his attention. This is a maritime frequency used to locate signals that can scan across the globe. This isn't a frequency that would be used for distress calls or in the range standard ham radio operators would be using if he were indeed looking for survivors. One theory is that Manny isn't immune to the virus at all, and that he has somehow found a way to jam the virus's ability to hack his brain. Or perhaps not jam the signal, but navigate around dead zones where it can't penetrate him. This might explain all the maps he'll take out of his apartment. When he turns up the volume on this frequency, we can hear a sort of pulsating pattern. In episode 1, the scientists talked about 4 different pulses which were distributed across different frequencies. These pulses repeated every 78 seconds. When he returns to his home, he'll collect what appears to be a portable signal scanner. It's pretty blurry, and I wasn't able to get the specific make and model, but if there are any radio aficionados out there, do chime in the comments. We'll also see he has a workbench filled with all sorts of tools to make adjustments to his radios. Then there's what appears to be a vinyl record or language learning box set. The translation reads, "Dreams with fluency." It looks to be some sort of way to learn English in your sleep. The not immune theory might also explain why Manny wasn't picked up by the Joined until 33 hours after the other 12. When he gets Carol's VHS, he's surprised to learn there are only 12 quote-unquote survivors. He decides to leave his compound, taking with him the book containing the frequencies and Carol's address. This suggests he's on his way to New Mexico, but that trip is impossible to make by land. He'll need the help of the Joined. I'm going to show one shot from the trailer, which I don't think is a spoiler, but it's pivotal in what I'm about to say. We'll see Manny in Gran Canaria, Spain. This definitely isn't New Mexico, and why would he be going to a location that looks as though he's going on holiday? Gran Canaria is extremely important for two big reasons. One, it's the location of the Maspalomas station, originally built by NASA to receive voice signals from Apollo 11. It tracks satellites and objects on deep space missions. He could use this to potentially catch data being transmitted from the hive mind source. Second, Gran Canaria is a maritime hub where signals like the one he was tracking using maritime frequencies would be strongest. Spain would often use Gran Canaria to transmit news from Europe to South America, so maybe that's how he originally heard the anomaly. I love this interaction between Manny and his mother, who is also the woman who gave him food. He says that she's not his mother was a bitch, which is made even funnier when you realize Carol's last line to Manny over the phone was, "F your mother." But now I turn it over to you. What do you think will happen next? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.